Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Growing a Dental Practice podcast. I am your host, Mike Hennon, and I'm joined by my co-host, Dr. Sahil Thakkar. Sahil, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. Just it's meant to be one of my days off, but it's a busy day still. So, still working on stuff around the practice, and yeah, I
So,
don't know where the time goes.
yeah, I can totally relate to that. But because you're in the practice today, right
Yep.
now, which is cool. It's a nice change of scenery. Um, when you say day off, though, you don't mean day off, do you? You mean admin day, more or less, don't you? Or do you
Uh,
typically try and take some wind down time?
I do try and take some wind down time, but that tends to be like half a day or whatever.
Yep.
I struggle to switch off when I know I've got stuff to do.
Mhm.
And at the moment that's all the time. So yeah, that's basically it.
Fair. And my next question is based on last week's episode.
Hmm.
Have you stuck the toilet roll
Yes, I
holder
did that
up?
today.
You have.
Yeah,
Congrats.
did it today.
Amazing. Is it on there like securely and level?
Yeah, absolutely, it's on there securely. What what do you think of me?
No, I know you would do a very thorough job of that. So
Yeah.
that's good, man. Anyway, moving on to today's topic. So obviously, this podcast it was all about um, how to grow a dental practice, how to start one. You're in a prime position because you literally became a principal. We're sort of talking just over 8 months ago
Yep.
at Dickens Yard Dental. So one of the things that's going to be on every new principal's mind and everyone that is wants to become a principal is the whole sort of when and how do you hire a team? Because obviously, typically a typical dental practice can't be a one-man band. So you're going to need other people to help you.
Hmm.
There's various different roles.
Hmm.
So I'd like to kick off by first asking, before you went down this road with Dickens Yard Dental, had you done any hiring or any type of
No.
hiring? No. So it's completely new to you, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd never had an employee before.
Perfect. So in that case, what were your kind of impressions or um, thoughts about hiring before you got into it? So what did you think of what the hiring situation was all about?
So I didn't really think about how I was going to do it. I knew what I wanted. I knew a lot more. Let's say I knew a lot more about the training and the what I wanted people to do rather than how I was actually going to find them or how I was going to interview them or the the laws and the HR side of stuff. I wouldn't say I knew a lot about that. It was more what I wanted really, rather than how I was going to do it.
Yeah, perfect. And when you say what you wanted, what was that?
So I wanted people to be welcomed sort of nicely in the practice.
Mhm.
I'm not a big fan of how dental practices normally answer phone calls, where people can be quite abrupt, and that was one of the things that we did. We've spoken about in the previous episodes where um, we called a lot of our practice. I got my mum to call a lot of our practices, a lot of other practices. I got my mum to call a lot of other practices as well, and just note down how different people answered at different times of the day. And generally, generally the tone was that they were doing us a favour, which
Mhm.
of course, um, if you are an NHS practice, that's absolutely the case. An NHS practice is doing their patients a favour. Private practices, it's I don't think it's the other way around, but I think it's a bit of a balance. Um, so that I wanted people to be greeted properly. I wanted us to be more engaging on the phone and not just uh, a receptionist shouldn't be there just to put people in. It should be more like a concierge or a front of house where they're actually able to answer questions, but they're actually able to engage people as well. So if a patient calls up with a problem, our role shouldn't be to sort of say, you know, they call up for Invisalign, we shouldn't be saying, oh, it's going to cost you $4,000 and it's going to take this long, that sort of thing on the phone. It should be more about finding out what their problems are and making sure it's right for them. And, just from that first phone call, that they get a more engaged response as opposed to, very to the point, if that makes sense. So that's one of the things that I wanted from reception. From the dental side of things, I haven't really. So we've only just started hiring on the dental side of things. I hadn't really thought about that too much. I knew again what kind of practice I wanted. So in the long term, I want our examinations, for example, to be hygienist led. Or even nurse. So all members of the team are sort of involved in it. So a patient can come in and a nurse take the history, do the iTero scan, and take the X-rays and things like that. And the hygienist comes in, does their bit, checks the gums, does the BPE, does the clean, and the dentist comes in and checks everything over right at the end. That's the kind of setup that I wanted, and that's reflected in the layout of the practice. But I didn't really think of how I was going to go around hiring these people, nor what sort of attributes they'd have, because it's actually quite a lot to think about. So when you're starting from scratch, it's I guess in hindsight, no, actually, I guess in hindsight, I'm quite happy with the way things have gone. In that we've got some really good nurses, our hygienist is great, and I think at the end of the day, it's more about that gut feeling rather than how people show up on the phone or on interview, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Perfect. So I know that you're a planner. There's there's no two ways about it. You're a planner. You did a lot of research before you went anywhere near, looking around practices and so on. Mm-hmm. So I am of the opinion that you probably had a plan. Did you have a plan of like who you were going to hire, when and where, or when you would need to hire people? Like, did you have that like in the background?
No. Is the short answer to that. I knew that I needed a receptionist to get started, and I wanted someone to be taking phone calls before we opened. Mm-hmm. I knew that I'd need a nurse. With regards to the nurse, it was more a case of, are you flexible and are you available, as opposed to what is your competence? Because when we started, I was working my own practice, I think 2 or 3 days a week. Well, I was doing 4 days in as an associate, and then a day off, and then two days over the weekend, or something like that. Friday, Saturday, Sunday was one of those. A couple of those days that I was working in my own practice. I just need someone who would be flexible around what I was able to do. So that kind of, I think the fact that we opened in that way shaped a lot of the hiring in the first instance. In that the first nurse that I got, 10 years qualified, was very happy to work weekends, and she's still with us. So that worked out quite well. The second nurse that we got, he had just qualified as a dental nurse, but he was actually a dentist from abroad who'd then gone on to Italy to work in hotels, and had come here and worked in hotels, but was thinking more of getting back into dentistry via nursing and then perhaps hygiene. And then obviously during lockdown that worked quite well, because hotels were were closed. As soon as things started picking up, it was a choice for him between, we can only, we're still growing at that stage, so we can only offer a certain number of days a week or a certain number of hours a week. So yeah, the hiring sort of was dictated more by our circumstances rather than by our ideals, if that makes sense. Yeah. I think it's one of those things that, had we focused on Now, I don't think any of the people that we've hired are particularly bad, but had we focused on trying to get a person, who was confident taking X-rays and scanning, would have been there for ages, or would have been paying someone, to be in the practice when we didn't have any work. Which I think, whilst I'm a planner, I think I'm probably better at financial planning than HR planning. And keeping a handle on the purse strings was the first priority, making sure we had cash in the bank. And like I said, to be honest, we've done fairly well with those two hires, even though the second guy's no longer with us. He's left on good terms in terms of he'd be available should his circumstances change. He's still he's still on our payroll, for example. So he only stopped working for us maybe about 6-7 weeks ago, and I think as we expand, we'll be giving him a shout to say, look, we can offer you more hours. Do you want to not dabble, but do you want to come back and do this instead, or are you quite happy where you are? But that worked really well for us in terms of how they both want flexibility, and that's exactly what we wanted. So I think we got quite lucky there. So when at the moment people are saying, "Oh, it's quite difficult to hire," we haven't found that. Whether it's the practice environment, whether it's the fact that all our equipment works, whether it's the fact that I think we're pretty nice people, to be honest. I think all of those things come across, and when people can see that you've invested a lot. I mean, I'm sure some of the practices that I've interviewed at are certainly I've interviewed at places where the room is honestly no bigger than a box room in a normal house.
Oh dear, we seem to have lost Sahil. Oops. That's all right, we can cut this bit out. Hello again.
Hi. So as I was saying, some of the places that I've interviewed, the room, the surgery would be no bigger than a box room in like a standard, suburban house. I think when people realise that actually you're offering them a nice place to work, you've got good equipment, it's going to be, you're paying well as well. So we've always paid people well compared to the average. I know that obviously that average is going up and up and up, but we were offering that more, almost a year ago, as opposed to a lot of places only just coming to terms with paying 13, 14, 15 pounds an hour, which I guess in London isn't so much of a surprise, but I know a lot of places outside of London are paying minimum wage or just above, and that frankly is, it's outrageous for someone who's as long as they're competent. Dental nursing is quite a skilled job. You can't just have someone else step in and do the same work. So I don't know if I've actually answered your question.
Well, between you talking and disappearing, I'm not really sure either. But
Yeah,
it was great. I definitely know there's some good value in it. Going back to the point about the average hourly rate.
yeah.
So what is the typical? What is the current average?
Well, so I think it depends, and I think it depends on your offering. So we start with 13. With practices outside of London, certainly the ones that I work in, I know that the pay is about 9.50 or 10. I know that there are practices not too far away paying 15 or 16. I think, of course, we would aspire to be paying that much. I think as things get busier and as things get get more stable for us in terms of, we know that we're making X amount of money a month, we know that our bills are this much, then I think we'd look to do that, for slowly increase their pay. I also think that what the average is depends on who you ask. So, for example, we've been chatting with a couple of agencies because we're currently trying to recruit staff at the moment, and the agency has a vested interest in their their people getting paid more because they charge a percentage of the annual salary. So they're going to try and push that up and up and up, and whereas people in a previous role might have been getting paid 11, you'll get the the candidate sort of information, and it'll say looking for 13-14 pounds plus, and you're just thinking, well, actually, let's look at the experience of this candidate and let's look at what they're asking for. Why would you pay that? So we've had unqualified people turn up, as in not qualified dental nurses, asking for 14, 13, 14, 15 pounds plus. And I think a qualified person in an established place, yes, absolutely. I think an unqualified person, I think that's taking the cake a little bit. So to answer your question, what we pay, I've told you, and I believe that actually is now around average, although a year ago it probably wasn't. It was probably above average, especially for London.
Yeah,
And I know
that's
people
brilliant.
I know people are definitely, yes, so it's average because I know people in London getting paid less and more.
Yeah, perfect. That makes sense. Perfect. So one of your, so I know your first obviously hire was a receptionist, and obviously you needed a nurse. When did you hire your hygienist? When did you bring the hygienist in?
I don't think I hired him. I think he hired us.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah,
Tell us about that
that's
then.
that's how that went. I think we might have spoken about it in an earlier podcast, or perhaps you and I have spoken about it privately. But one of the things that I did for marketing was post in the local Facebook groups to say, hey, we're opening up. What are the things that you'd like most to change about your dental experience, or something to that effect. And most of it was anxiety or clear pricing, or why aren't you NHS? I think people just think that as dentists we're a disgrace, or we're scum of the earth, and they think we're made of money. So a lot of comments were, oh, why, have you thought about offering free treatment to X, Y, and Z? And I'm just thinking, have you thought about how I'm going to pay my bills if I start offering free treatment to X, Y, and Z? We've only just opened. It's all well and good having a CSR strategy, but I think that's a nice to have, not a how am I going to pay NatWest at the end of the month level of commitment sort of thing. So we got lots of responses like that, and then our hygienist, his name is Colin, he messaged me and he said, that was a mistake. You're only going to get idiots on these forums. And he said, oh, by the way, do you want a hygienist? And to be honest, we did get a few patients off that, because I kept replying, so it kept getting bumped up in the list in the thing. And each one of these groups has got anywhere between 5,000 and 20,000 people in it. So we had quite a few patients come off the back of that. In that I posted, and then for the next few days, this was before we opened, the phone started ringing quite a bit. So it works in terms of recruiting patients, but also recruiting hygienists. And then he popped around, he saw the building site, he said, yeah, I'll give it a go.
Did he love it? Did he really like it? Like the look of the practice?
Well, yeah, he's still here, and
Blown away by it, probably.
he is booked weeks ahead, and we're going to need more of his time. So that's actually a new development since the last time we spoke, where I think last time we spoke, we were booking a couple of weeks ahead for me and a bit more for the hygienist. The hygienist is still booking about a month ahead, save for cancellations, but now I'm booking a good few weeks ahead, unless I squeeze people in the evenings or early in the morning, which I'm now not liking the idea of so much. There's only so many hours in the day, so I'm starting to go back to having a balance, if that makes sense.
Good. That's good. So how many days was Colin doing, and how many days is he doing now? What hours was he doing before, and what's he doing now?
You know what? I'm not too sure.
Fair. But
he does probably about 14 hours a week, which is the equivalent of, I guess, 2 days. And then he'll do extras on top of that. So I think we probably squeeze out 2.5 days, the average of 2.5 days from him. And there's obviously only me as a dentist, and I do between 3 and 4 days a week, but slightly longer days. So if they were standard days, I'd probably be doing 35 hours a week, about or thereabouts. So of clinical work. So he's filling probably about 16, 17 hours a week average, and I'm doing twice that.
So there's some good scope for him to increase. Is he working anywhere else? Is he just yours at the moment?
Yeah, he works in 2 other places.
Cool. So do you think you could coax him over and potentially leave other places? Or?
Yes, but part of our problem has been capacity. So we've only got one chair, and between us, we're working about 6 days a week, and we've constantly been hiring. We've never really stopped hiring for more than maybe 3-4 weeks. Where we might have paused the adverts. So we need more nurses. We need another chair. I'm about to get rid of a receptionist, so we need more receptionists. We're looking at hiring dentists as well. So
cool.
Yeah,
so
I think at the moment the problem is more capacity than anything else.
Yeah, perfect. So until you get that second surgery, it's gonna you can't really talk too seriously about. We can't increase the hours that he does drastically.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, fair, perfect. Right. So you just mentioned you're about to let go of a receptionist. So we'll cross that bridge in a second.
Sure.
Because that'll be fascinating. What is your obviously, I guess you're tweaking the process as you go along. So as you hire more people, your hiring process is changing.
Yeah.
What's the average process? What is the average process like? How are you typically finding the candidates, and what are you doing with the candidates to sort of check those?
So we mostly advertise. I'll advertise in a couple of Facebook groups. We've obviously got a couple of agencies we're working with, which. To be honest, that's something that we signed up for, but I've kind of half-hearted that, because I'm, a lot of the times, because everyone's hiring, I think these recruitment people think they're God's gift to earth. So it's, I'd rather deal with the person that I'm about to hire. So we do a lot of advertising through Indeed, and I would say that for nurses, we probably get 2 candidates a week, of which, so let's say we get 8 candidates a month, of which 1 person or 2 people I'll look to do a telephone interview. Everyone else will just reject straight off the bat, which, in hindsight, may be a mistake, but I'm limited on time, so I've got to work with the people that we can actually interview. And on the receptionist side of stuff, it's a bit of a free-for-all. So we've had 2 sort of broad adverts. We've had just a receptionist, or we've had an experienced dental receptionist advert. And for receptionists, we probably get 5 candidates a day. For experienced dental receptionists, I think it's probably 3, 4, 5 a week. So who will we interview and how will we interview? I've set up filters on Indeed. We've had quite a few people apply and not realize where the role was based, or quite a few people apply and not realize that we're a dental practice, surprisingly. So we've set up a few filters on Indeed, so I'll only get pinged if they meet all the criteria, but also I'll only contact them if further I'm happy with their CV, sort of thing. Then we arrange a phone chat, and I had 3 interviews on Monday, of which 2. So essentially, I give them my availability, and they pick a time. So I had 3 interviews on Monday. One person attended. The other 2, I called them up, and their phones were off or went straight to voicemail. Which is really helpful because I know not to waste my time, because that's potentially 2 hours of my time saved by the time you've done a phone interview, gone back and forth, all that kind of stuff.
That's instant, like, self-disqualification, isn't it?
Yeah, but the weird thing is that they got to pick the time out of my calendar, and I'd given them 3 or 4 days, and the choice of quite a lot of time. So that's that's a bit strange. But yeah, just going back to that, I'll then have a phone interview, because especially with COVID, I don't really want people attending in person unless we're serious about hiring them. So I'll talk through the role and make sure they understand their situation, and understand the kind of hours they're looking for, the kind of pay they're looking for, what sort of skills they've got, whether if we're hiring for reception, whether they're familiar with our software. I'll ask them a couple of awkward questions, like if a patient calls up asking for an implant, what do you say? And I've yet to be thoroughly impressed by anyone, which is, I think, a reflection on the training that goes on in other practices. And I think there are lots of practices that are doing really, really well, but I think it's more because there's lots of patients and not enough dentists at this moment in time, rather than these practices are actually sweeping people off their feet. So I think but then I guess that sort of candidate who's properly curated would only come through an agency. I don't know, or perhaps wouldn't even want to leave their practice because they're doing so well, or getting paid so well. So I suppose we have to make those people rather than find them sort of ready-made. So that's how we do that. And then they come over to the practice, whether it's receptionist or nurse. We show them around. We explain to them how we work. I do a little bit. My practice manager does a little bit in terms of explaining, what goes on, and that's it. Generally, if people visit, I'd say we probably hire half of the people we interview in person. So we don't really like people coming in, or I don't really like people coming in unless I've got the intention of, potentially hiring them. So yeah.
Perfect. Great summary. Love that. Are there any? So I think we've kind of touched on this already, but like, what are the key traits of an individual, regardless of the role? What are the key traits that you look for?
I think likability. I think for reception, there's got to be presentation or tone of voice, the way you talk, the way you handle yourself, that sort of thing. But then we'll come to that in a second when I talk about why I'm going to try and fire someone. Or why I'm going to fire someone. And then in terms of nurses, just competence, learn a bit more about what they do, or ask them, a couple of questions about how would you set up for this, or do you understand how this bit of equipment works? How would you set it down? Just learning about competence, because I don't think you can ever assume knowledge, regardless of how skilled or experienced a person is. I think that would be a mistake. That, but also sort of, a lot of it's on gut feeling. I don't think you can truly tell how competent the person is unless they've worked with you, and I don't think you can. I think people can definitely present a different side of themselves at an interview. So you think they've got a good attitude, and they maybe don't. So I would say the things we look out for are attitude, skills, and presentability, probably more than anything else.
Perfect. Because like you say, you get those traits down, then you can teach the rest of it, can't you? And
Yeah.
yeah, perfect. Awesome. So let's get to the juicy bit then. Why are you about to let someone go?
Because I think they're incompetent.
That's enough said.
Yes. So I mean, there are a few factors, but for me, the main factor is competence, and I really struggle with incompetent people. So we've actually got an operations manual of sorts, I guess you could call it, where this is what you do when someone comes in. You do this, 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 this. This is what you do when someone books in. I think I mentioned to you previously that we take prepayments for all of our appointments, and we use Xero Invoicing. So I think you use Xero Invoicing as well. So you'll understand how it works. You make an invoice. You literally have to put in 3 things when you're making an invoice, which is name, first name, second name, and email, and then you pick your item of service. For us, there's only 4 things that we take payments for up front. So there's that's all pre-filled in, and then you press save and send, and that's literally it. And then it gives you a little template of what the email looks like. So we went through this with this particular person. So Dipsy, my practice manager, went through it, and where it was demonstrated, and the that particular team member was shadowing, and then it was done the other way around, where that particular team member was doing the work, and they were being shadowed or monitored. We've also written it down as flowcharts. So this is how you send an invoice, log in. There's 2-factor authentication, etc., which is all fairly normal nowadays, especially for someone who's in their 20s. And over Christmas, I had probably 3 days off where I sat at home and just played FIFA, and I logged into the invoices, and I thought, okay, let me look at my diary ahead, and no one had prepaid. And firstly, when people call up, we say to them, look, we're going to do 3 things. We're going to register you, we're going to send you your forms, and we're going to take prepayment. Is that okay? So we're asking them for their permission. And if they're umming and ahhing at that stage, then we know that unless they've got a good reason, let's say they're clearly on the bus or they're driving or something like that, that makes sense, that's fine. If they're umming and ahhing for that reason, then we know that person's probably going to cancel. So we'll take their booking, but we'll put a pop-up note saying not paid, cancel ASAP or chase ASAP. And then we realized, okay, we can send invoices out. And then I saw that loads of people in the week ahead hadn't paid, and the correlation there is people don't turn up. Or I would say of the people that don't pay, 60-70% don't turn up.
That's mental.
Yeah.
I did not realise it was that bad an issue. And it's not just you either.
I don't think that's other practices. I think that for some reason is just us. But also, you've got to bear in mind that I would say probably 95-97% of our patients are paid 3-4 days ahead, at least, if not at booking. So I'd say probably about 70% pay at booking, and then the rest of them pay by link. And most people have paid by the time their appointment date comes up. We only won't cancel the booking if the day is looking a bit sketchy and there's no point cancelling it. If they turn up, great. If they don't turn up, then so be it. Or if one of us has missed it. And it turned out that this particular person hadn't sent any of these invoices. They'd created about 10 or 15 or whatever, and none of them had been sent. And we'd shown them step by step what to do. So fine, okay, no problem. So very nice at that stage, sent a video, this is what you need to do. It doesn't take long to send an invoice. I've just said to you, we need 3 bits of data, and then it's just the item of service. It should take probably 45 seconds to a minute to send an invoice once you're up to speed. Let's assume it takes 5 minutes. And the protocol we've got, so this is all set out, is that your payment protocols, it's written on a sheet, you take payment at booking. Or if not, send them an invoice. So it's all laid out step by step by step. And all you need to do is split screen. We start sending out invoices for recalls 4 weeks ahead, so they start getting a reminder 2 weeks ahead. So we're making sure that people are coming in, because if people are 6 months ahead, then they're going to have forgotten, or they're going to need to change that appointment. And that was over Christmas, and it's 2 weeks down the line still, and I'm just looking over my diary, and there are people next week who haven't had an invoice, and this person's had probably 7, 8, 10 shifts in that time of 6, 8 hours each. And I'm just thinking, there's only me as a dentist. So we've stopped her working from hygienist days, where hygienists, every half an hour someone's coming out, there's something to do. If you're new, I understand, every time someone comes out, you spend 5 minutes sorting them out. By the time you get to other tasks, there's a lot of downtime. For me, I take 50 minutes per patient for a new patient examination. Most of my treatment, I do a lot of quadrant dentistry, which as a non-dentist basically means I split the mouth into quarters. And if there's something to do in that corner of the mouth, I'm doing it all. So that means my appointments are really, really long. If between appointments you've got 2 hours, I'm expecting that these invoices have been sent out. So that's just one example of the competence. Or we've got a checklist, which I'll share with you at some point. We can go through the practice protocols and our receptionist training manual and that sort of thing. And it says that you've got to check the voicemail. You've got to answer these phone calls. If someone inquires, we've got an inquiry bot, and everything is automated, and things just aren't happening. So with inquiry bot, I've set up a flowchart to say, right, okay, we've got 5 columns. Those who don't have inquiry bot, it's a CRM system, and you can automate it. So what we've set up is, a patient comes in, first phone call, we call from the mobile, they don't answer, we slide them to the next column, an automated email goes off. There's nothing to type. Their name is pre-populated based on what the patient has filled in on their form. You call them again, you call them again, you call them again, and then they go into the revive category, where we will email them a few weeks down the line to see if they're still interested. So we try and do a combination of 3 phone calls and 3 emails, or something to that effect, and it's really not difficult. But it just doesn't seem to be happening. And then other things like tone of voice. So we've gone through tone of voice in terms of, we've got quite, you've seen our cards. This is our referral card, for example, and it says on the front, I'll hold it to the camera, it says, "Don't keep us a secret." So it's all fairly playful. Think Virgin Atlantic in terms of tone of voice. So we've gone through that in terms of how we want you to answer the phone call, how we want you to tone your emails. So even my practice manager has started. It's extremely formal, whereas the way I communicate and where I type is extremely relaxed, and that resonates with the type of patients we're going for in terms of the demographic. Between 20 and 40, the vast majority of patients in that range. So getting those things across, I think all the training's fallen on deaf ears. I think getting what else? Oh, there was something else that was on top of my head, which was extremely silly. But I think I've demonstrated enough the reasons for getting rid. I think the most important thing here is having an HR company, because had I sort of got this contract off the BDA, for example. I mean, I don't know how good BDA advice is, but I've seen BDA contracts. They're very much in the favor of employees. So we work with an HR company, and we could get advice off them. They've helped us create our employee handbook, our list of roles and responsibilities, the contracts, the offer letters, stuff like that. So everything's done by the book. We're just going through that. So now the next thing I need to do is do a probation performance meeting, something like that. And we've only got a couple of weeks left of the probationary period, and I'm wondering whether I should say to her that these are all the problems and this is what we need to do, or do I just cut things loose? And so thinking to myself, I'm thinking I just need to cut things loose and get on with it. But on the flip side, we're getting so busy now, it's physically impossible, because we've only got, the practice manager also covers reception. we've only got one of the member of staff who's competent at doing that at this moment in time. So we're currently sort of looking for a receptionist as quickly as we can. Ideally, someone who's experienced, so they don't need to spend too much time learning the systems, more so just the way that we want to communicate as a practice. Hopefully that's something we can do. So I've got a couple more in-person interviews on Thursday, which is I hope they go well. Depending on how those go will depend on how quickly I fire this person, really.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I guess it's hard, isn't it? Because you're on one hand, the best situation is probably to get rid of them because they're not gonna. They won't change enough to fit in with what you want. Like you say, you also don't have the flexibility really at the moment to kind of lose that person.
Yes, but also I think you get that sort of guilt where you're like, oh, actually, have I done enough? And you sort of look at yourself, well, maybe the problem's with me, or could I have trained them better on this? Could I have done that? Could I have done that? And I'm thinking, well, actually, no. If I've been up until 11, 12 at midnight going through, typing everything out, and we've shown them once. They've shown us once, or however many times. It's not just been once. I mean, there have honestly been shifts where there have been 2 people at reception, and I would expect that these things have been picked up. If we'd hired someone who was 50 plus and not grown up with tech, not grown up with email, not grown up with all these things, then I could understand that perhaps a little bit better. And then, on the flip side, I would expect someone of that age to have much more in the way of social skills because, they're just older. They understand how people react and how things work. But that's, this particular person, I think, is lacking in quite a few areas, which I'm not sure we can improve on. But also, I think there are sort of moments of attitude coming through, not with me specifically, because I'm not on the desk all the time, so I don't really see it. But certainly, between other members of staff, I've had that a little bit feedback to me. So it's more a case of, do we nip it in the bud? Are things actually going to get better? And I think in hindsight, as I'm talking to you, I don't think things are. So then it's just a case of how long are we going to keep this person on the team until we find someone else?
Yeah, and it's like, when are you going to rip the Band-Aid off?
Yeah, basically.
When you're going to take because will this be your first firing?
Yes.
Yes. So are you anxious, apprehensive? What are your thoughts around that? Is that a reason you've put it off? Are you putting it off because you don't want to do it, or?
Oh no, I've only made this decision yesterday.
Okay, cool.
No, Monday. What day is it today? Wednesday.
That's yesterday, yeah.
Oh, Monday is yesterday.
Tuesday.
Yes, there you are. Yeah. So I think I'd had reservations for a few weeks, but I think without speaking to this person, I'd sort of said, look, okay, I can see that this hasn't gone so well, so please follow this. Can you read through this? Can you make sure all of this is done? So that'll serve as a reminder. So we've tried a few different things. I think perhaps I haven't been as explicit as I could about it, but in saying that, am I making excuses for myself not to rip the Band-Aid off? Or am I actually being fair and saying, well, actually, maybe I haven't been as clear about it as I could have? So for me, even in the way I work, when I speak to patients before their treatments, there'll be, do you understand we are doing this? If I book someone in for 30 minutes, I actually probably only need 20 minutes for the procedure, some of the times talking. Of course, being private, we've got the pleasure of charging for that. So I take as long as I want. But do I need to treat my staff in the same way? So that I think that's what I'm thinking of. But I think as far as me making decisions goes, I think this is probably one of the quickest decisions I made. Where okay, all I needed to hear from someone else was, oh, we think there might be an attitude problem. Right, let's get to HR. Tell them our problems. They'll tell us what to do. We'll go back and forth, and Yeah. The only problem is this particular member of staff's only in tomorrow, and I've got a full day of clinics tomorrow. So, yeah.
Tough to juggle. But no, it's going to be it's going to be a learning curve, a learning opportunity.
Yeah. So I think I'm more worried about how they will react.
Mm.
But I think if they've got any sort of self-awareness, they'll know that they're perhaps not doing as well as they should.
Yeah, and obviously you're going to follow the book anyway, aren't you? So
Yeah.
it should be pretty straightforward. Perfect. Well, you have covered a lot of things, Sahil. As always, I'd expect nothing less of you. So I want to finish off basically with what's the one piece of advice you would give a fellow new principal when it comes to hiring? What's that key bit that you think they should know?
I think with my limited experience, I'd sort of say get it done quickly. And the most important thing is gut feeling. And with all the people that we've hired, it's sort of been on the case. It's been on the back of, oh, okay, actually, I think this person would be a good fit, or there's a good gut feeling. And even this particular person that we're we're looking to get rid of, I think a lot of that's based on gut feeling. I think everything else is more a reflective exercise or an excuse in terms of all I've just said to you, the pros and the cons, and that's me justifying it out loud, I guess, as to why we want to get rid of this person. But I think it comes down to the fact that I've got the gut feeling that this person's not going to improve, and I think we've done enough. So I would say just trust your gut.
Trust your gut. Perfect. Love it. Right,
Based
Sahil, thanks.
based on very limited experience. Based on very limited.
Yes. But that's the whole point, isn't it? Everyone in this boat has got limited experience.
Yeah.
So hopefully you're a few steps ahead of everyone else.
Yeah.
So that should be probably pretty key to their success. So thank you again, as always, for your time and your wisdom. I don't know why I did this, but we'll go with that. And I will see you on another episode. Cheers,
Yeah,
mate.
absolutely. Looking forward to it. Speak soon.
Bye.
Bye.